Yeah, you can.
Test 1 2. Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2. Test 1 2 3.
Oh, Jonathan, I have something for you, and it's in my office. Is it okay?
No, I mean like.
Oh, okay. But it's up in my office. That's not a good place for it. I took it out of my purse. For some right?
Trying to get through.
school would be so, we have lots in numerical order.
We worked that out with Kathy. They put me out slowly coming back.
I know. Yeah, I better. Never know what might happen.
Get lower chairs or higher tables.
I like to lean back, you know, so it's just to rest my chin.
I mean, I could eat like. What is this? We're going to use these at Thanksgiving.
That'd probably be pretty good for your neck.
There you go. I set my head on this.
I think you were out the first time we did this, and we had nice chairs. I think they come like you block the audience. You know anybody wants to be a bus driver, do you?
Including me in the bus drivers.
Yeah. The economy's getting better. Starting to.
What's our hourly rate?
Doing hourly. And I mean, basically it's what they work. You know, so if the route takes longer, they get more, you know, and then we GPS track it to make sure that, you know.
I'd like to welcome you to the September 22nd meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education. Prior to this meeting, the board conducted a work session where we received an update on the schools of innovation. We will have our traditional moment of silence and then the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Ms. Westland will read our vision statement. So at this time, could we have a moment of silence, please? Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Westland.
Thank you.
Our vision statement at JCPS is that all JCPS students will graduate prepared to reach their full potential and contribute to our society throughout life.
Thank you so much. Is there a motion to approve the September 8th minutes? Mr. Brady, second by Ms. Haddad. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Recognitions and resolutions, Ms. Terry Robinson.
Thank you. Dr. Hargens, Board Chair Diane Porter, and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education. This evening we began with the recognition of the 15 district school PTAs, JCPS staff members, and volunteers that received Kentucky PTA awards for their outstanding service, leadership, and contribution to helping promote the educational success of district students. Board Chair Diane Porter, please come forward and congratulate the schools, PTAs, and staff members in your board district. Tanika Presenti, PTA President, Latasha Craig, Family Resource Coordinator, and Robert Gunn, Principal, Foster Traditional Academy, Sharice Cook, PTA President, Jill Krugel, Mary Situ, and Kimberly Jones, Assistant Principal, Kennedy Montessori Elementary School, Betsy Johnson, PTA Representative, and Chris Berber, Principal, Mazik Middle School, Paula Fox, Outstanding Classified Personnel Award recipient, joined by PTA President Alicia Pasley and Kim Rice, Principal, Western Middle School. Gay Adelman, PTSA President, the Academy at Shawnee. Pinky Jackson, PTSA President, Marie Sarlis, and Jerry Mays, Principal, DuPont Manual High School.
Y'all cover me up right here. Cover me up, please. That's all right, dear. That's okay. I'm not prepared for my picture to be made back here.
Hey, Kay, how are you? Good.
Thank you. Board Vice Chair David Jones Jr., please congratulate Mark Boyer, Principal, Klondike Elementary School. Board Member Debbie Westland, please congratulate Katie Bogan, Outstanding Volunteer Award recipient, joined by Betsy Johnson, PTA Representative, Dunn Elementary School, Kathy Farmer, Gold Clarity Coach, Emily Smith, PTA Representative, and Tim Hagan, Principal, Height Elementary School, Karen Pridemore, PTSA President, and Michael Kelly, Principal, Crosby Middle School, Austin Elaine, Principal of Low Elementary School, Outstanding Educator Award recipient, which he received while he was Assistant Principal at Western Middle School. Thank you. Board Member Chuck Hadaway, please congratulate Laura Mullaney, Principal, Gudamuth Elementary School. Ronell Combs, PTSA President, and Sherry Lawrence, Assistant Principal, Western High School. Thank you. Board Member Linda Duncan, please congratulate Titania Parker, Principal, Auburndale Elementary School. Stephanie Frank, PTA President, and Adrian Odom Rhodes, Principal, Lockoff Elementary School.
Board Member Carol Ann Haddad, please congratulate Krista Baldwin, PTA President, and Tiffany Marshall, Audubon Traditional Elementary School. Board Member Chris Brady, please congratulate Dr. Scott Hooper, Principal of Jeffersontown Elementary School, Outstanding Educator Award recipient. Next, it is our honor to recognize Lockoff Elementary School and Foster Traditional Academy for being named National PTA Schools of Excellence, a designation that recognizes schools for their achievements in building strong family and school partnerships and for making a positive impact on the success and well-being of students. Board Member Linda Duncan, please come forward to extend congratulations to Lockoff PTA President Stephanie Frank and Principal Adrian Odom Rhodes. Board Chair Diane Porter, please congratulate Foster Traditional Academy PTA President Tanika Pacenti, Latasha Craig, Family Resource Coordinator, and Principal Robert Gunn. It is my honor to introduce Heather Wampler, 15th District PTA President, who will make some brief remarks.
Dr. Hargens, Chairwoman Porter, and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education. I would like to say thank you on behalf of the parents and guardians of the students of Jefferson County Public Schools for making changes to the back-to-school supply list for this school year. I would like to read you just one of several letters that were received as to how this has been a positive impact for our families. Words cannot express the relief we had this year with the revised school supply list. Our family was trying to figure out how we were going to manage purchasing supplies for our 2 kids. Last year we spent nearly $200. This year we spent $40. We did not have to choose of paying a bill or school supplies. So thank you very much. So thank you guys for doing that. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Heather, Dr. Hargens, and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education. This concludes our recognitions for this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Is there a motion to receive the recognitions? Mr. Hathaway, second. Ms. Duncan, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. At this time, we always give a moment for our audience who has been recognized to leave. But before we do that, we'd like to thank you very much. And while you're going out, we're going to give the PTA a big round of applause. So thank you for being here. At this time, I'd like to move on with the agenda for the consent calendar and the superintendent's report. Dr. Hargens.
Thank you, Chairwoman Porter, members of the board. It's my pleasure to call to your attention a few items. JCPS is proud to be a district of innovation and to be moving forward with the schools of innovation, the Catalpa School and Reach Academy, and we had a work session discussing that. We are at the end of the 14-15 budget cycle with a request for the approval of the working budget tonight, outlining the ways that dollars will be spent intentionally to increase student achievement. I appreciate the opportunity to be present with board members at the community conversations. Mr. Jones, Ms. Porter, Ms. Wesland, and Ms. Duncan had great conversations in the community. Next conversations are Ms. Haddad on October 9th, Mr. Hadway on October 11th, and Mr. Brady on October 23rd. On Friday, September 19th, Cabinet members and direct reports immersed ourselves in the system to see the system from the eyes of our students and our employees, to truly see the system from the center of the universe, which are our schools. A shout out to Alicia Miracle, the bookkeeper at Olmsted Academy South. I learned a lot. Thank you. Item Roman numeral 5S, the approval of memorandum of agreement with JCTA, is on tonight's consent calendar, and there is a hard copy or revised hard copy in your red folder. Chairwoman Porter, at this time, I recommend the consent calendar for the board's consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Hargens. There are no speakers on any of the consent calendar items. Are there any items to be pulled down from the consent calendar? Mr. Brady?
I'd just like the administration to discuss a little bit in detail item S.
Ms. Duncan?
P and R.
Did you just say R?
Yes, P
Okay.
and R. P is,
P as in Paul?
yes, P5.
Okay. Other items I'd like to pull down, B, C, which is the approval of job descriptions. Are there others? Okay, seems like I'm first. V, C, the approval of job descriptions, and it's the job description, the Assistant Superintendent for Academic Support Programs. Items 5, 6, and 7 are not clear to me, so if someone could explain, for example, 5 says that the person prepares and delivers presentations, and then it jumps from that to delivers presentations. Item 6 says administers early childhood program, and it jumps from that to saying oversees special schools by working with special school principals. And item 7, where it talks about District Title I budgeted initiatives, it says now oversees work of counselors, Frisky, and FRC coordinators. Instead of saying provides leadership and administration, it just says oversees the work of. So could you explain those items, please? And if it's, I don't think that'll take a long time.
No, some of it's just semantics. He oversees the work. Some of the leadership is we have people that, for example, Carol Bartlett, that in effect provides the leadership and is the face of the leadership of our family resource centers and our Frisky coordinators. And she, of course, is a direct report to the assistant superintendent who's in charge of academic supports. So it's really just semantics, and we could say that they lead the work or they supervise the work, and they certainly do, and they step in constantly. They work collaboratively with the people that do that leadership. So that, I think, is just semantics.
Okay, and oversees special schools by working with special school principals. Could you define special schools for us, please?
The special schools are agency schools, in effect, Brookline and Home of the Innocents and other schools that we, that truly is about overseeing the work, those principals and the educational services that are provided inside those schools falls under our academic services, and we take that very seriously. We have a principal, Michelle Eccles, who works directly and is a presence in all of those schools, leading the teachers. But I want to ensure that from the highest level, our assistant superintendent is clearly working with those agency schools to ensure our kids in those schools get what they need.
Okay, and the last item develops presentations and packets and school overviews, but it takes away the ability, or maybe it doesn't take away the ability, because it says before that that person delivers presentations to the Board of Education, Superintendent of Schools, and other stakeholder groups. So does that no longer a part of that job?
No, there are times that they would do that kind of work, that they would offer those kinds of presentations. They present, for example, we sometimes bring them in for principals meetings where they do presentations, and usually I try to serve in the role of bringing the information to the board, but there may be times where we will have a panel of those people, including that assistant superintendent, to talk about issues regarding our academic support side.
Okay, thank you. That answers my questions. Are there any other questions on that job description? Thank you, Dr. Hensley. Moving on to P5, Ms. Duncan, the acceptance of the NCLB Title I Part A Section 1003G funds from the Kentucky Department of Education. Ms. Duncan.
Well, this has to do with our priority school funding, and we've had such a dramatic drop in that funding over the cohort schools. We've had the first and second and third. But when a cohort 3 school receives $98,000 to perform a turnaround, what are the expectations for that school to use that money? I mean, how can a school make good use of $98,000 to have an impact on turning a school around?
The message that I've attempted to give to those schools, you have to take those dollars and invest in capacity building. In other words, instead of trying to purchase technology, which would be so little that you would purchase for that amount, or even hire a person that would come in and perform some task, it's better to invest those dollars in professional learning, professional development for the teachers, specialized professional development, individual role groups, getting increasing their skills around school turnaround. What we've tried to do, for example, there's an allotment that's provided to the district there, that we've taken those district dollars and actually distributed those directly to the schools to try to give them more capacity themselves to decide how they're going to, what they can do, what they need to invest in. Because while all of them are about school turnaround doesn't look the same in every single school. So we're trying to basically use those dollars to build capacity, to make people stronger, to ensure that their teachers have what they need on their tool belt in terms of skills to really move achievement forward. But you're right, and compared to what Cohort 1 received in the past, that's a small amount of dollars to try to do tremendous, great work with.
Well, and Ms. Duncan, you might remember that there have been requests and budget requests where this Board of Education has supported things at the priority schools. So it's not just this amount of money that supports the turnaround, it's also your own budget and your own decisions that give these schools, as Dr. Hensley said, the tools that they need and the people that they need. So this is just a small part of their budget.
And under Dr. Hargan's leadership, we've really pushed to ensure that they are fully resourced, that they have the coaches that they need, that they have the time they need, the master schedule that they need, so they can really be effective and turn it's really more about kid turnaround than it is school turnaround, that they build a capacity to turn the lives of kids around. And it's a challenge, but our priority schools are doing some tremendous work.
Dr. Hensley, that was a great answer too. That was Dr. Harkins. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's not paying for one person and a few more things with that, but it's really investing in the staff so the staff can grow, be stronger. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is R, approval of agreements. Ms. Duncan, I didn't hear you say which agreement you had a question about.
Well, the one I was looking at, I just wanted to say something about the Kentucky Science and Technology Corporation. That's the agreement with Shawnee High School.
So that's number 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, R3. I am just thrilled that this this agreement's made and that Shawnee High School can have advanced placement courses in English, math, and science. And I don't, this was a long time that we've ignored that, or that need there has not been fulfilled. So I'm just really thrilled with that. And it looks like through this, is this related to Advanced Kentucky? Is this related to it? Or, I mean, it looked like there are bonuses involved for scores of 3 or better.
It's really a part of the Advanced Kentucky initiative. You know, we have Seneca, Moore, Wagner, Fern Creek, Southern that are all participating in that Advanced Kentucky. We now have at Shawnee, for the first time, 11 AP courses being taught right now. So we have definitely moved into a new era for Shawnee High School in both raising the expectation for students and for teachers and for the whole system that's in place for academic achievement inside that school. I'm very proud of that and the great work the teachers are doing there. But yes, it is a part of Advanced Kentucky. We've seen growth due to Advanced Kentucky. We know that the teacher training that's a part of that the incentives that are provided, all of those things, the data is really pointing to that being effective. So I'm glad that Shawnee has been able to join our other high schools that are involved in that project.
I was really tickled to see that. Thank you.
Just quickly, I'd like to say that Dr. Radowski brought a report to the board. It may have been last year with advanced program opportunities for students, and the Academy was the only school that did not have them. So I commend the staff here and at the Academy at Shawnee for stepping up so that now it's about access and opportunity for all students. I didn't pull it down, but I just had to say that. So thank you everyone for making that happen. Item S, Mr. Brady, the approval of the memorandum of agreement with the Jefferson County Teachers Association for 2014-15 school year.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to have someone discuss this particular issue. I know it's of high importance and it's gotten a lot of attention, and I know each of us have had a lot of communication regarding it. And just like to, as part of the record, for us to discuss that and talk about what this particular agreement entails and how it affects our teachers.
Through state mandate, as you know, this year we gave a 1% raise along with salary steps, and next year we'll give a 2% raise along with salary steps. That did not preclude us from negotiations with any of our salary groups. We negotiated with JCTA and ultimately came up with a solution that really poises us to emphasize recruitment efforts and strengthen our young teacher base. And what we did was, based upon last year's salary scale, we placed $820 in each cell. Now, it's important to know that isn't on top of 1%, that is with 1% inside of that. So we really front-loaded our salary schedule, which is a great incentive for us in that regards.
Okay. And can we discuss how that might trickle down, and I know we're not voting on this particular part tonight, but how that might trickle down to the other groups that are within our organization?
Yes, pending approval in a few moments. Our other employee groups have a Me Too clause, and the way the Me Too clause works is it pertains to the percent increase given to the Jefferson County Teachers Association. When looking at the percent increase of $820 across the entire salary schedule, that came out to 0.13% overall. In talks with our other employee groups, the decision was made to implement 0.13% across the board. Another note that we should make is, as this is instituted this year, since we are already into the school year, already into the fiscal year, we'll be applying the difference between the increase and what had already been given as a lump sum payment throughout the fall semester.
Okay. And this is over and above, or this particular agreement goes for not only this year, but also for next year as well, correct?
Yes, we will have agreements for the 14-15 and 15-16 school years.
All right. I appreciate that detailed explanation. I think that serves your record well, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
If I could just make one follow-on point, I think that I would like to commend both the management and the JCTA for what I think is a innovative and thoughtful way of improving the attractiveness of the position for new teachers, and doing that within the budget constraints. I applaud both sides of that negotiation for coming to such a good agreement.
Ms. Duncan.
And I would just like to make a comment. You know, we keep saying it was mandated, and it was mandated, but it was also, we know very well it was well-deserved and well-earned, and we're tickled to be able to reward our teachers with this much, and we would love to do more. And in the future, we will do more. But, you know, working in Jefferson County is so different than other counties in the state. And when I walked into a kindergarten classroom where 12 different languages are spoken, so you know the task of the teacher and the teacher assistant in that room is not the same as other people's, and they're teaching so much more than kindergarten. And I just think it's we need to just stop and realize the mammoth job our teachers are doing out there, and know that we can appreciate what they do, and we don't have to be mandated to do it. We would do that anyway. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Mr. Brady, second. Ms. Westland, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to the action items. There is one speaker to talk about the working budget. Mr. Moffitt, Tom Moffitt. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to address the board. At the end of 2.5 minutes, a bell will sound once. You will then have 30 seconds to finish your statement. At the end of 3 minutes, the bell will sound twice, indicating that your time is up. Mr. Moffitt, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Dr. Hargins and board members. I want to commend you first for the mutually agreeable solution to the teacher contract. I think that is a wonderful way to resolve that. I hardly agree with that starting at the bottom. I have to say, I wish that you had taxed us more so that you could have given the teachers and the classified employees more. I really believe that would have been a step forward. But that's water over the dam. Now, in the current budget, I saw in the paper that you have found some significant money for several things that I believe are very positive. The transitional centers, the mental health coordinators, and the goal clarity coaches. From the paper, it sounds as if that's a total of about $7.6 million. I think that is well worthwhile. What I want to say is, I am not sure, and I don't have any way to know, whether that is the best use of those $7.6 million. Something tells me that I would like to know why that is better than taking 60 classrooms, preferably first grade classrooms, and reducing the pupil-teacher ratio in those 60 classrooms. My rough calculation is that with that same amount of money, you could cut in half the size of 60 classrooms for our beginning students. And that, it seems to me, would give you a very good indication of whether that is a worthwhile way to go to make sure that first graders are ready for second grade. All of them, not just some of them as it is now. I wish you would think about that for next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moffitt. At this time, we will move to the action item, the approval of the working budget for fiscal year 2014-15. Dr. Hargins.
Thank you, Chair Porter. So what we're asking for tonight is the approval of the working budget. The term working budget means that it is what guides our work this year. It's the game plan for the year for spending that aligns with the stated priorities. It's the guide that is followed, and any necessary adjustments are made as the year progresses, working within the budgeted dollar amount. What Ms. Harden will demonstrate to you is that revenue has increased, but so have expenses. I'll remind everybody that over 80%, almost 84% of the budget is salaries. We are a people-powered business. It is clear from the trend data that the salary costs have increased, including the rising costs of employee benefits. So what Ms. Harden is going to do is walk you through the numbers and then just a review, and then what I'll do is talk about the priorities.
Just as a reminder, and this information we have presented previously, but our total working budget revenue is, and this is the total of all funds, is $1,406 million. And you can see how it is broken up. And as Dr. Hargan said, 80% of the budget is general fund. The general fund revenue is $1,131 million. And this is the fund sources as far as where the revenue actually comes from. Our general fund revenue trend, as you can see, the local revenue has continued to increase. The state revenue, which is mainly the SEEK funding, is increased some, but not to the degree that it has on the local. The federal portion below there is the indirect cost that is charged to the federal programs. So it's fairly consistent. This is our expense fund trend. The first line you see, the $789 million, that is what is provided to schools. And the next line, it's a pink as far as the numbers so that you can see that it's different. That is actually school support. What is included in school support would be our facilities. The transportation is in there. All of the academics division, health services, so nurses would be included, ESL department, career and tech, student assignment, half of computer ed, half of the digital tech, Title I, because all of those actually support the schools. And then the other line, as far as they run pretty close together, you've got the business offices that is in the blue, and that would be the superintendent's office, labor management and employee relations, finance, general counsel, human resources, materials production is there, operations, and planning and program evaluation. Then in the brown color, that is our overhead and other system costs that are included in those numbers.
So actually, Ms. Harden and her team have developed a book called The Working Budget, which shows the trends of different line items. And if you look at the add-ons for each of the school levels, it tells the story of how we have intentionally driven more resources into schools. What you'll notice in this book is a decreased trend or a decreased cost for special education at the elementary and middle school levels, which signals decreasing number of students. But the methodical steps, and you can see it in the dollars, has been to create a strategy, create a structure that supports the strategy, and then act or implement that strategy. So when I visit schools, when I visited Olmsted South on Friday, I saw the dollars allocated in action. In 2012-13, assistant principals were added to the elementary level to ensure that counselors could counsel and that teachers could teach. Goal clarity coaches, based on the GE staff developer model, were provided at every school to support teachers. If you look at the trend, over 5 years on the elementary level, an additional $2 million was added to support ESL. An additional $500,000 was added to maintain family resource centers. Mental health counselors and SRT student response team coaches and a district positive action center provide the supports needed to elementary schools for this school year, the 14-15 school year. If you look at the middle school trends, the year that I came, which was 11-12, an extra assistant principal, which was added in the budget developed before I came, was put at each middle school. But you can exceed the increased cost there. Goal clarity coaches were put in middle schools in 12-13. And at the middle school level, as was mentioned tonight, transition centers provided a place provide a place for students to get their academic footing when learning has been disrupted by absences, support issues, or suspensions. At the middle school level, students have access now to mental health counselors and student response team coaches. At the high school level, there are transition centers, there are student response team coaches, mental health counselors, and building assessment coordinators, as well as what the board has done is maintain college access resource teachers. So support systems have been put in place at the elementary, middle, and high school level to support student achievement. At all three levels for 13-14, you see the increased, actually for this school year, which is 14-15, you see the increased cost of goal clarity coaches that add content level expertise to help the teachers make sure they can deliver the standards. So our board, and you can see it in the trend data, over a 5-year period, committed over $3 million to support early childhood learning. There is a continued commitment to extended learning. If you look at the contingency budget, you'll see $3 million that will continue extended learning for this school year. It just hasn't been distributed to the level, so you still see it in the contingency budget. So the dollars truly reflect the strategic priorities. Priority number 1, excellent supported core instruction. As Dr. Hensley would say, more effective teaching in more classrooms, more of the time, with the expectation that all students will learn what is expected. Learning is the variable that we have to hold constant. The way of doing business, and our community has been invited in, is professional learning communities. The professional growth effectiveness system provides an avenue for feedback and support for teachers. The variables that we know must change are the amount of time and support needed to achieve that learning. So this budget this year adds the support that students need while continuing the support for extended learning. What I would like to do, because this is a work in progress, not a perfect document, is add achievement outcomes to this picture. Remember, we implemented the standards in 11-12. We have a baseline from 11-12. In 12-13, achievement increased. The budget dollars that changed that was the year that we put elementary assistant principals, again, so that counselors could counsel and teachers could teach, and we moved goal clarity coaches into the center of the universe, which is schools. And we began the hard work of working in data-driven PLCs. So we expect to have the 13-14 results at the beginning of October. And what we can see is correlating where the dollars have gone and the years where we see achievement increase. I'll turn it back to Cordelia.
The next is, as far as what's coming, we're still working on our financial transparency website. This is just one screenshot that shows that. It will show the history as far as FY12, 13, 14, 15, and then going forward. But you can drill down, as I've shown before, to see actual expenditures at a school level or a department level, or based on a particular fund. But we hope to have that coming soon. There's a few things that we still need to work out and work with Tyler Technologies to make sure all of our data is correct and it's pulling the right information for previous years in particular, as we're looking at.
But what the board and the public will be able to see, as you can see on this screenshot, is the actual expenditures and what the budget was, and then you'll see that green or red dot. So green means that you spent within the budget, and red means you, for some reason, there was an expenditure above the budget. But you can also, if you wanted to see the trend of this year, there is a tab where you can click to another year. So you can look at any one of these items and see the trend for, is it 3 or 4 years?
At this point, it's 3 years.
3 years.
It will continue on. It's only because FY12 is the first year that Tyler Technologies Munis has in the system for this particular program.
But if you want to see the difference between expenditures and what the budget was, this financial transparency site will allow us to do that. So we're requesting approval of the working budget is the agenda item.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Jones?
So if we could go back to slide 5 of the presentation of the PowerPoint. Slide 5 of the PowerPoint.
There it is.
There we go. Okay, and I want to make sure that I understand this correctly. And so what this shows is that between 2010 and the proposal for fiscal 15, the amount of spending within the schools has risen by about $180 million per year. It's about a little over 5% a year, while overhead spending, broadly defined, has been held flat.
That is correct. Now,
Okay.
what that also includes, that change includes where we've put the assistant principals
Right.
in also, but it is school-related cost, yes.
And I assume that a lot of that is people moving, so the goal clarity coaches, the assistant principals. Can you give any estimate of how many people have moved into the schools and out of centralized research or other functions?
As far as, of course, we had the assistant principals that we added at every elementary school.
Right.
That was a direct add-on.
So that's 60 or 70,
Right.
something like that.
In the
89 to be exact.
Right.
89,
Yes.
60 or 70 or 89. That's what I meant. Okay, so there's 89 there, and then there are a couple hundred.
Well, and we also added middle schools. There was some addition of
Okay.
assistant principals. We've actually, on the Go Clarity coaches, there was 57 and a half individuals that were moved.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were ads, actually, not all of them were. And we had resource teachers, and then through a different initiative, in order to help schools, help teachers, we went with Go Clarity coaches.
Mm-hmm.
But there were some additional positions added. We've also, the student response teams, that has added. We've had 34 SRT and PBIS coaches, that was $2.2 million, 15 mental health counselors, that's almost $1 million there. The District Positive Action Center, where we've added a resource teacher and some assistants. So there's numerous positions.
So it's hundreds of new positions over this 5-year period in the schools, and I assume that the excuse me, the flatness in the overhead lines reflects a certain amount of freeze and not filling vacant positions. So there's really been a decline in the number of positions at the central office and positions that are not directly supporting schools, while at the same time there have been these hundreds of new positions added over 5 years, totaling about $180 million of additional spending on the schools.
That's correct.
I think this is a very helpful and insightful display, so thank you.
Mr. Brady?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I just want to again discuss the booklet that we're publishing and putting out there with the working budget. And I just want to inquire a few questions, but this is being one of them. Where is that available online for the public to be able to see at this point? I know it's a living, breathing document and will be changing, but I'm curious to know if that's been made public for access.
It will be made public, yes.
Okay.
Just as we publish the actual budget report, this will become, it will be available and will become a document more so than what it is right now. This is our first view of it, and it will continue to improve with each working budget.
I know we've had discussions about that, so. But I do want to be able to communicate out there to the public that this isn't just some internal document or you have to only get a hard copy, that we'll be able to make this available online. Also regarding the transparency site, again, commend you for moving forward with that particular initiative and being able to provide that additional level of detail. I will say that outside of that particular transparency site, regarding the actual physical budget that we always get, the 89 pages, I guess, PDF that we have, again, I just want to reiterate my concern regarding that. I've made this concern in the past, and I wasn't expecting a change this time, but I just want to be able to communicate this time around that I do expect to see more as a board member. I want to be able to see more information regarding that. It seems at this point, as I've mentioned before, it seems to be a spreadsheet with little information in there, no really budget to actuals, no content or context regarding particular items on there. So I'm fine moving forward with this particular working budget, but just I want to reiterate my concerns, and I expect to see changes next year regarding that. So thank you.
Ms. Westland?
I have a question and then a statement I want to say about the budget. I would like to take Mr. Moffitt's question and ask Dr. Hensley to answer it. And the part that is, because a lot of people do ask this question, and the issue of smaller class sizes has come up before, I mean, for years, and certainly during my tenure, and different superintendents, even in my short time, have had different opinions about that. And I think I know that you, Dr. Hargens and Dr. Hensley, would recommend that if you thought that was the thing that would really help struggling kids. So can you just explain why we've taken this amount of money and why we're investing it where it is, and how you think that will really help the most struggling kids?
Well, we believe the initiatives we put in place, they solve a problem, an identified problem. How we're utilizing the personnel, we have great input, a lot of data gathered that shows us that those are problems that need to be solved, and then if we solve those problems, then there will be a great deal of obstacles removed for kids. In terms of class size reduction, there's a long history of research behind whether or not class size reduction actually leads to student achievement. There's a researcher, Eric Hanushek, who put together a great deal, a mega analysis that showed across the board internationally where places had invested a great deal of money in class size reduction. And his overall conclusion drawn from all those studies put together is that class size reduction has little effect on student achievement. The most prominent American study around that is called the Tennessee Star Report, which was done a couple of decades ago, that looked across the entire state of Tennessee, where Tennessee's Department of Education invested in lower class size. So they studied all the schools across Kentucky, a random set. They looked at their reduced class size. They determined that the only place there was possible, and I like what Mr. Moffitt is saying, he's very, very insightful. The only place there was a slight change in student achievement happened to be at around first grade. And they weren't sure if that actually was a real result of the class size reduction that was 15-1. So even the Tennessee Star Report showed across the board that there was little to no impact, particularly at upper grades, particularly at fourth and beyond, there was little to no impact on student achievement based on the billions of dollars that have been invested in class size reduction.
And I'll give an example. If you added one teacher, like another first grade teacher to an elementary school, you would be able to reduce the class size for first grade. But what we did with Goal Clarity Coaches, we created a position that supports every teacher and all 458 or 500 of those kids. So the impact of that one person is leveraged across the school. So that's really an intentional investment in supporting and building capacity within schools. So everything that we've done for 3 years has been very intentional and deliberate to create a strategy structure that supports the strategy so that we can focus on implementing the strategy. But it's about making the dollars go as far as you can have them go. So the Goal Clarity Coach is a good example of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moffitt, for your comments too. All this discussion is real important. And I want to thank all of you for your presentations. I've thanked you plenty of times, and I'm not going to do too much more, but you've done such good work, and I feel really confident about the extra investments and where they're going. It seems very intentional, and really appreciate that. I do have a little bit I want to say about just the budget process going forward, so I won't get a chance to be listened to too much more, so I'm going to mention this. Over the past few months, there's been a great deal of analysis on the budget and how it's presented. The result is that more people should understand what goes into the public schools' finances, and that's a good thing. This booklet and the upcoming transparency website should give a good overall picture of where the money comes from and where it goes. But a budget this size, and it's highly regulated from every level of government, will never be uncomplicated. We'll never untangle it to the level everybody understands everything about it. In the budget process, board members have the responsibility to bring citizens' concerns here, and we do that, making sure that the taxpayers are being spent wisely and on children, and that all laws and regulations are followed. On the other hand, board members also have the responsibility to communicate the other way. We have to take information to citizens and let them know where needs are and what it will take. We have to ask people to invest in the school system. We're making these additional investments this year, and that's good. I fully support the extra for mental health, preschool, tutoring, and other things mentioned tonight. But we need to not forget we're taking more from our reserve to do these things. As I've pointed out before, we've taken away from facility upkeep and bus replacement, for example, to make needed cuts. I trust we can weather these decisions, and I trust you, Cordelia Hardin, that you'll make sure that happens. But we can't weather them forever. Within the last year and a half, we've heard from 2 mayors who've come to Louisville to speak, Oklahoma City and Baltimore. Both places talked about how they had to use increased city revenue to rebuild and improve public school facilities. I hope we'll be proud and realize we're not like them. We have not been in that state at all. We have facility needs, and we've talked about that, but we have a priority list, and that list is being checked off every day. We're addressing projects. However, budget stresses there are being felt and could get out of hand. So I think there are 3 things that need to happen going forward. Number 1, we need to finalize these internal analyses that have been underway these past few years to improve our system. We need to get them done and get to work. The PDK curriculum audit laid the groundwork for significant restructuring, especially in academic services, as Dr. Hensley has led, and other audits have raised improvements that we're dealing with. Number 2, we need to continue to identify needs based on input from schools and from upcoming results of student assessments that we'll see soon. We've done a good job of taking that information and investing where weaknesses are. And number 3, we need to communicate with citizens and other elected officials about what we need. This should include a bold advocacy effort on the need of funding from state and federal levels. We know that decisions there affect us greatly. For example, special education costs will continue to go up, and the federal government has never met its pledge for assistance. It's amazing the inaction on all that front. We should be heard. On the state level, we should appreciate the restoration of several years of funding cuts, but also remember other areas like the retirement systems, which will require more local funds. We need to stay on top of that. This board has met its responsibilities. Others need to as well. Next year will be a challenge, as Dr. Hargens has already pointed out. She has been clear. We need to start communicating now and often about that. People need to understand what we're going to be deciding, or what you all are going to be deciding next year. This budget is done. The next one is a work in progress already. I know you've got documents underway for next year. One thing I feel confident about is that we have excellent financial staff whose work has been studied in detail for months. Thanks for the time you spent on that and for being truthful with this board about the challenges. I'm glad to support this budget, but I hope the need to dip into the reserve will be addressed next year and that a long-term plan will be developed to set priorities over time for the budget. Thank you all.
Ms. Haddad.
Yeah. I want to thank you, too, for the work that you've done and the new booklet that you've put out. It shows that we are responding. We were thinking about some of these things before the audit did come out, but now we're showing that we are taking it step by step and are doing things to make it so the public can understand it more. Where are we on the findings? You know, I know with the audit, you talked about the audit. I know that's not right in this, but it's all connected. Last we heard, there were 13 of the 45 findings have been completed. Have we done more, or what's our process on that?
There is more that has been done. I have actually asked Cabinet to update. I have a spreadsheet that kind of keeps track of a project planner so that we'll keep on track of each of the findings. They will get back with me. I've given them some time until the end of September, actually, so that I can come back to the board and give you an update on each of those findings and what our progress is. But yes, we're continuing to look at it, and there are actions that are being taken.
Yeah. So we are going forward with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. And thank you for the transparency. I saw that too. That's really exciting that the public can really see what it is we're talking about. And I think when they see it, they'll be able to visualize more than when you just see a book in front of you, because that just kind of throws me. But when you see it and it's printed out in a smaller version, it's much easier for the public to see. Thank you for your work. It is, to me, I do understand. I don't know every single penny, but I do understand and appreciate the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Other comments? Ms. Duncan?
Well, I want to thank Dr. Hargens for this budget in the sense that I have never felt more support for the barriers, for addressing barriers that in a budget than I have seen this year. And it's almost like a wish list when you're in a school and you say, oh, I wish we had somebody who could do this. I wish we had. Just like our goal clarity coaches. I mean, there is no way a classroom teacher with 31 kids can approach individualization without that kind of support, or somebody who's tracking data and feeding that back to the teacher. But the mental health counselors, the SRT folks who are in here to help with de-escalation, and the many things that we've talked about tonight, we've named them all, I think, and these are hitting at one of the things that's toughest for us to get at, and that is our population that has an unstable home life. And when we begin to do things like transition centers and mental health counselors, then we begin to make inroads on those barriers. And this is the first time that I feel like that we've been able to do that. And I just want to thank you for this approach, because you're making these things top priority, and they have to be, those things have to be addressed first, and then the learning can happen. But without it, our learning is handicapped, and it's just to me an amazing budget, and I appreciate all of the work everybody has done to bring this to us.
Is there a motion to approve the working budget? I'm sorry, Mr. Jones.
I've got two detail questions, if I could. First of all, and sorry, page 23 of the booklet, Ms. Wagner, there's a contingency referred to as 2% and other contingencies, $74 million that was not in the prior years, and recognizing that this is a work in progress, but that's a big number. What's
the contingency actually is in the budget process, the state requires that we include the beginning balance in revenues. So we have to then include a contingency, which is 2% plus anything else, has to be included in this expense side in order to make the balance budget.
Okay, so you always put it in the budget at the beginning of the year, and it's 2% of the general fund, or what?
And other
so that's
funds
40,
too, yes.
$45 million or something, plus named contingencies like the $3 million that Dr. Hargens mentioned, and that's how you get up to that 74. But then when we look at the prior years, it's not contingent anymore, it's all an actual expenditure.
Correct.
So every prior year will always be zero, and there will always be, okay, thank you, I understand that. The second thing is I got a little over nerdy and tried to tie the expenditure categories to the annual financial audit categories. And I wasn't able to understand how all that works. So can you give kind of just high-level guidance? And again, this is a work in progress. I get it.
The details here, such as instruction, in the CAFR, the annual financial report, there are a lot of these categories that are pulled together to make that number for all funds. The majority of the detail here is general fund, but in the CAFR report, there is one page that refers to budget versus actual. It's back in the statistical section, and typically people do not really drill down on that item. What we will do is in our next reiteration of this, I hope to more clearly present that so that you can see how those numbers tie.
Okay, but if I do go back to that page, or if you explain to me, you can point how these categories tie to the ones that the auditor generalizes up into, and it all foots.
Absolutely.
Okay,
yes.
Great. Last comment, and I think this is really for Dr. Hargens. Again, and I hope the media present get it, budgets are not that exciting, but to see that in an environment of 3% annual increase in revenues, which is kind of where we've been over this time period, we've been able to add almost 5.5% a year to what goes on in the schools. I think that's the headline here. The question for Dr. Hargens is, okay, you've found more money, you've had a hiring freeze in certain places and put more resources here and there. Can you connect that to student achievement? And if so, what do you point to?
In terms of connecting, we can certainly connect the resources that we put into the budget into schools, because they are research-based, very intentional. And we are making a concerted effort to also stop spending on things that don't, which I think is your point, that don't have an impact. So we are always looking for the things that we're seeing not increase student achievement, and we're eliminating those things. So you can increase revenue or repurpose dollars or eliminate spending. Those are your three avenues to do what you need to do. So we have eliminated spending that is not getting us a return on investment at all. So it's those three things that contribute, I think, to being able to put more resources into schools. And I have to commend the staff because, and Dr. Radowski's shop with program evaluation. So because we're evaluating everything with the intention for that to inform the decisions that go into the budget. So what we bring to the board should have a research base.
So when we get the results of the state tests in the next few weeks, if we are fortunate enough to see continued progress, you know, from wherever we were 6th percentile to last year 32nd to some higher level in the state. We're going to feel like the people in Jefferson County and the people in the schools have intentionally caused that to happen. It's not just good luck.
Definitely not just good luck. So we should be able to connect the dots between the intentional actions and any results. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the working budget for the fiscal year 2014-15? Mr. Jones, second. Ms. Westland, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
Could I just, one thing, I wanted to thank you all and Dr. Hargens for the direction and the input that you have given in order for us to have a better document, one that the public can understand more and you as board members can understand. And also to thank John Colopy and Tara Rowland, part of the staff that are instrumental in putting all this together.
Thank you very much. Moving on the agenda, we're now down to board reports and requests. Board reports and requests.
The calendar.
Mr. Brady. Oh, if you'd like. Sorry. I apologize.
Sorry.
Absolutely great idea. Why don't we go to the 2014-15 Board of Education discussion agenda planning calendar?
And if I could just say, if you notice, it is a revised calendar that puts a lot of the things that we've been talking about and schedules them. So, and we're excited about this work because it has a lot of things up until the end of this calendar year. So we've revised it to include, so you can know what we'll be talking about and the public knows what we'll be talking about.
Other comments? Ms. Duncan?
Well, one thing I would like to see us do, you know, we were supposed to sort of track suspensions monthly. I think that was kind of an expectation for something for one of our audits. But we don't have to do it monthly, but periodically I'd like for us to know what what DPAC is doing. You know, the District Positive Action Center, what's going on there? What's going on in our transition centers? What's happening with restorative practice? Because we've had people trained to call on restorative practices, to try and use that to help us approach and reduce offenses and suspensions. So on our calendar, is there some way that we can kind of touch base with that so that we know what's happening in these programs that we've added?
Sure, and in the strategic plan, there are leading indicators that lead to the success measures. And one of the recommendations of Dr. Owlsbury, to Ms. Wesland's point of making sure that we do the things that were in the reviews, was during the superintendent's report to bring you data and those data points that you're asking. So that will be included in the superintendent's report as we get those data points.
Okay.
Anything else on the planning calendar? Is there a motion to receive the planning calendar? Mr. Brady, second. Ms. Haddad, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Now we are going to move to board reports and requests. Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A few things I'd like to, some shout outs, if you will, if you may. I want to say thank you to principals who were very gracious and open enough to allow me to attend some of their open houses within my district, as September is always a very busy month. My wife can certainly attest to that. So I want to say thank you to the principals at Fern Creek High School and Elementary School, Wilt Elementary School, Farmer Elementary, and Ramsey Middle. They were very nice to allow me to watch them in action and also be available for any parent concerns or any comments. I also want to talk a little bit about a couple of other issues. I did have an opportunity to visit Kennedy Metro Middle School and see and witness the work that they do there, and also to speak with some of their kids that were transitioning back into their regular schools, and it was they do provide a very valuable service. I do know that we're talking about transition centers as part of the working budget that we just approved. I do want to, and we're also in the process of trying to repurpose Kennedy Metro to be an elementary school to be able to shore up some of the shortage of seats we're having in some of those clusters that are in my district in the southeast part of the county. I do want to just put out one thing regarding that is, and there's been some concern expressed on the behalf of the staff there about Kennedy somehow going away and us relying on the transition centers. At least I can only speak from this particular board member's point of view, is that I do not see that as being a possibility. I see the fact that we need to keep Kennedy as a unit and move them to another facility that will facilitate and help with their efforts. I have no intention of having them switch over to a total transition center and having those kids be not within or not together in a manageable unit such as they are right now. In addition to that, also on a completely unrelated matter, I do want to talk about the materials. Member Jones talked about this a little bit during our work session. I want to talk about it again. We brought this up a few times already, but the items that are posted on e-meeting, we really do need to have a freeze date on those. There were some items that were actually updated just before this meeting this afternoon, and we really need to have that information. In particular, I think the issue with the work session would have been helpful if I'd had that information, because that would allow me to digest that info and also come up with more pointed and targeted questions, and give me a chance to really think about what it was that I was actually reading and being presented with. Another couple of shout outs. I do want to also congratulate the J-Town Chamber of Commerce on a great successful Gaslight Festival. We had several schools participate in the Gaslight Festival parade. We also had adult learning that was out there at the Gaslight Festival presenting and giving some information that was out there, and that was a man booth. So I do want to commend those folks. I know that I certainly got my steps in that particular evening. I walked with my son's school. So, but it was great, and it was great to see all the kids out there and all the different bands that were out there and that were making a parade. So it was a really great experience. And lastly, I also want to say another personal thank you to Congressman John Yarmuth. He took time out today to go to the Unsold Child Learning Center, Early Childhood Learning Center, and it was an opportunity for me to be able to tour that facility. It's a brand new facility, great, lots of natural light, very conducive to to learning, not just at early childhood, but at any age. And it was very nice of him to take time out of his schedule to be able to put some focus on those Head Start programs and be able to make sure that we have adequate funding for those kids. It's as he said and we said as well, it's vitally important that we catch them young and be able to make sure that we don't allow that gap to even develop in that particular facility. And I'm sure, along with our what is now the Presbyterian Community Center, I don't know what we're going to name that, if we're going to leave that at the name or some sort, but to be able to continue that mission and expand those services out to those folks that really need it. So I just want to at least just say my personal thanks to the Congressman for taking time out of his schedule. Thank you.
And if I could just say, Dr. Razor visited Kennedy Metro actually this afternoon because of hearing the same rumor that the intent was to recommend that there not be that alternative center, to reassure the staff that is exactly what Mr. Brady said, that the intent is to relocate it, not to eliminate it. That's important. And he spoke with them personally.
Thank you.
Ms. Duncan.
I had a meeting of the State Curriculum Assessment and Accountability Council, and on that council, Heather Wampler joined the council, and also Tom Aberly, and we had some great discussion around some proposals that superintendents had considered, and for some changes in the assessment and accountability system. And it's a 3-year time period. It's time for a review. It's a time to see if there are some things that can be improved. And we pretty much agreed with the responses of the superintendents to the proposed changes. The thing I liked the best was the half-point credit, the proposed half-point credit for moving a child from novice to apprentice, instead of getting nothing for that and getting 1 point for proficient or distinguished. So we all seem to be in agreement on that. One thing nobody agreed with me on, we had a proposal to if a school that a school that is called a school of distinction cannot be called a school of distinction if it is also a focus school, which I pronounced my agreement with that. And I was the only one in the room that thought that should be applied, because other people thought distinguished schools just have those, well, you just have those other groups you have to work on, but you still can be a distinguished school. And to me, a distinguished school moves all of its groups, whatever groups it serves, it moves all of its groups. And I wish that someday our accountability system would reflect that, so that it's not just about the achievement score. It's about what are you doing with the kids that you're serving. But anyway, lost that one. We also reviewed the coming science assessments, some of the samples of science assessments, and some of the sample items that will be used on the test are types of items. And my goodness, they're quite challenging and performance-based, so that kids have to demonstrate their learning, not just do multiple choice tests, but demonstrate their learning. And quite challenging assessments coming to us. I think Dr. Harkins and I then Saturday took part in the Fairdale Fair Parade and had an opportunity to meet the public after that in our conversation, and my community conversation with the public, and really enjoyed all the people who lined up and got to receive the candy. We did the best we could not to knock anybody out, but I think we did probably make a few bruises. But we had a great session with the community during that time period. And also, I was at the Unseld Center today too with Carol and Chris, and just a point of pride for all of us, for the community, and to know that we're putting money into this early investment of our preschool kids just is just so exciting. And I think Congressman was very proud of what he got to see too. So thank you to Kevin Nix and everybody who helped conduct that tour. Thank you.
Ms. Haddad, Ms. Westland.
I agree that was a wonderful event today. And of course, it was named after a wonderful person, George Unseld, who gave so much to education here in Jefferson County, and I really enjoyed working with him too. But it is wonderful to see how orderly it was. They were all sitting down looking. I wanted to sit down and play Legos, because that's what I used to do with one of my grandsons. And he even did a handprint, John did, with the kids. But it was so orderly. It was not noisy, but they were all busy and they were all doing things. So it shows that our push for early childhood is working, that we are getting these kids young and that they are deliberate in what they're doing. It was amazing. Just as young, usually you think of 3-year-olds running around tearing the room up, but not these. And they loved it, and they were all happy, and it was really, really good. And they went and picked their lunch out and healthy food. I mean, it was exciting, and John really enjoyed it too. And I did get to talk to him a little bit about Head Start, about how we need to change it so we can fill positions and not leave them empty. And I still don't understand that theory, but that's what they tell us. Because there's so many kids, we have a waiting list for some of those kids, and we need to get them in right now, not wait in case somebody comes in. You know, Diane and I have talked about that a lot. So he listened, and I think he'll bring it to somebody's attention, because there are kids out there waiting that could be taken care of like these young ones were today. So I appreciate him coming out there, Dan, the superintendent. It was fun to see the little ones, and that helps us. That made me even more determined we're going to get more of them in there, so that when they go to school, they are really going to be ready, because they were doing really things that you didn't expect 3-year-olds, maybe what kindergartners did. Now the little preschoolers are doing. So Karen and Kevin, they've done an outstanding job working with it and getting more of them, and having. In fact, we're going to have another in October. Go out to Valley for one of those family culture. What do we call them, Karen? Concerted cultural event, where parents come out and we give them information. And I went to a communications meeting this afternoon with Metro United Way on our early childhood, and they were so, Laura Douglas chairs it, and she was so impressed with the chart that Karen and Kevin and them had made up that she wants to give it to everybody all over town. So it was really a good meeting too. So what we've done, we don't hear a lot about, but it is good stuff that we're doing every single day for our kids.
Ms. Westland?
Just have a quick report and a couple of requests. One brief report I want to make is went to Hyde Elementary on 9/11. They have had a remembrance every year since that event in 2001. It's always very meaningful, involves the whole community. The mayor of Middletown was there, firefighters, police, council people, and they all stand as all the kids come in and greet everyone, and then they have a great ceremony. This year, a young girl, a Heights student, was able to participate in the raising the flag. It was a new flag. They replaced a flag that was old there on the campus, and her grandfather had been killed in the World Trade Center, a grandfather that she never met. So it was really very, very meaningful that it was a Heights student, a girl that got to do that. So that was something worth reporting, I thought. Two requests. Dr. Hargens, we had a great community conversation, and thank you for being there. One issue I wanted to see if we could just look into, because it made a lot of sense. You know that Westport Middle used to be a high school, so it has a lot of fields around it, some used for soccer and a variety of things. And there was a request to look into bleachers, maybe other equipment. And the logical point to me was that realizing someone mentioned that many of our public schools rent private facilities. It's not so much that Westport would get these bleachers just for them. It would be so that other schools could use this property, and perhaps we could stop some of the rental of KCD and other places and use these fields. So it's really just to look into the cost benefit of perhaps investing there so that other schools could use that. The other thing is, this came up briefly at the community conversation, but I've had at least 4 conversations about this issue in the past few weeks, and that is the difficulty for families of finding high schools that they feel like appropriately meet the needs of their children who have learning disabilities, particularly different forms of autism. I know one family kept their son back in 8th grade another year because they just didn't feel like there was a high school program. And you know, every child is different, and autism is different in so many ways, and they're feeling like they can't find the right match. So it's not something I need to report on next time, but it's just something that maybe staff could start looking at, maybe some of these examples. They could see, there may be something that the staff would say, this school will do it, and maybe the connection with the parent isn't being made or they don't understand it. But that's definitely a need, because that's difficult, especially as they get older and need to connect with something to do after high school, whether it's school or some kind of career. So we just want to make sure we're serving those populations, and I know that's difficult. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, quickly, I have a few things. We received an email from Mike Casserly from the Council of Great City Schools on 9/11, and he's asked all the districts that signed the pledge to come up with an implementation plan for turning the pledge into a reality. So Dr. Hargens, I would like for you to share our district plan with the board when it is developed, please, and that it should be inclusive of all parts of the district, not just one particular area. And it suggests time frame for the components. There is a pre-conference session in Milwaukee with the Council of Great City Schools, and I think Dr. Hargens plans to attend in October, where they will have a whole session to talk about what the other districts are doing. And it was very meaningful when we were in Washington, D.C., to be in a room with other large urban districts to talk about the plans that are in place. So it was a great learning opportunity. So I think it would be helpful for us, for this board, to receive that information so we are aware of what our plan is looking like. Also, I wanted to thank Mazik Middle School. They hosted my community conversation. It was a great community conversation. And I have told several parents that was the same night as Manuel's open house. So I am available to go back to Mazik for any parent that was not able to be there that night. But I wanted just to say thank you for the schools for making us welcome and getting the word out and seeing to it that it's a good evening. This weekend, the Metro Louisville and the Urban League and some others were partners in something called Zones of Hope. The Casey Foundation was in town, just to make you aware of that there are 4 zones of hope that have been acknowledged or working on in the city of Louisville. And those neighborhoods are Newburgh, California, Parkland, and Russell. And on Saturday, they went to all 4 of those neighborhoods and spent time and had community meetings to get input from members of the community. I had an opportunity to spend a little time at the Parkland meeting, and then yesterday there was a closing session with the mayor and others from Casey at the Center for African American Heritage, just to make us aware that that is in place. Also on Saturday, had an opportunity to see Dr. Joyce Howe, who was the board chair of the city system, and we were in Shawnee Park for the Molly Leonard Award. Molly Leonard was a prominent figure in the Portland community, so I just wanted to let everybody know that Dr. Howe is, she's still hanging in there. Yes, I wanted to share that information with you. And on request, I know you, Dr. Hargens, you're going to include something about suspensions, but if we could have a 30-day report, it doesn't have to come to the board. It can be in a weekly update currently of what our suspensions look like and what the demographics of those suspensions are, and what are the results of the various means that we have in place that we're supposed to be that we have put in place to keep students in school. Because we said that was going to be our focus this year, to keep students in school with the understanding that everyone is safe. So I think it's time that we start looking at that at a regular basis and to determine where we are successful with that, and if we're not successful, what are we doing about it. And one other report I would like is I'd like to see, and the board to see, a report of our schools where they have teachers that have been there for 5 years or less. And I'm making that request because in many of our schools where we have teachers that have been there 5 years and less, a lot of the instructional time that the instructional leader is spending doing evaluations and classroom observations. And I would like to see what that looks like for the district. Is there any equity in the process, or do we have a lot of schools where we have a lot of teachers with 5 or less, just for the board to be aware of that? I think that completes my list. Look forward to the board receiving that information. Anything else from board members? Okay, there is one person to address the board on a non-agenda item, and that is Dr. Randolph Wick. Dr. Wick. Dr. Randolph Wick. Dr. Wick, third time. Okay, he's not here this evening. There are no other speakers to address the board at this time. There is no need for an executive session. Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Brady, second. Mr. Hathaway, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
Great.